Welcome to Phonogenics 101, a Riotboy production hosted by Jeremy Gloff. The podcast where people who love music discuss albums track by track. Please hit subscribe, and if you'd like to support this podcast, patreon.com/Jeremy Gloff or Venmo @Jeremy Gloff. And now, on to the music. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phonogenics 101. I'm here with the Blondie Debbie Harry family. We might have a couple more joining us in a little bit. But last time we met, we talked about Cuckoo, which seemed to be a divisive release amongst the fan community. Now, then Debbie went away for a few years. The first time I saw her reemergence was on the Crush Groove soundtrack. I'm like, oh, because I was a huge Blondie fan when I was very, very little. And then they broke up in 82, of course, when I was 7. So in 1986, correct? Debbie released her second solo album. So this is the first new Debbie Harry album to really come out when I guess I would have been 12. But by that time, you really can understand music a lot more at 12 than you could like at 6 or 7. So I didn't collect toys or I didn't play sports when I was a kid. I collected records. And I remember getting Rockbird when it came out. So we have some longtime Blondie fans on the panel. You guys know them from the other albums. But let me start off by asking you. I know you all were Blondie fans from Auto American on, right? Probably earlier. So, what do you remember about finding out like Debbie after all these years off, partly to take care of Chris Stein because he wasn't doing well? She's finally coming back. She has a new album coming out called Rockbird. What was your anticipation of this? Does anybody remember?
Yeah, I remember. I remember my little brother telling me that. I remember I was coming home from college, and I guess it was 18. And my brother was telling me, I was watching MTV, and they had an MTV news report that Debbie Harry's going back into the studio, and I nearly like clutched my pearls, and I was so excited. And then I remember she slowly started making some appearances here and there, and then the Crush Groove single was released, and she was teaming up with Jelly Bean for that, and that was going to be really cool. And then all of a sudden she was like popping up at the MTV Music Video Awards and stuff like that. So it was all really, really exciting. And it was a time when we didn't have any social media. We didn't have, anything. So you had to grasp at whatever you could. And just trying to get any little drib or drab of anything that she happened to be doing. I remember looking in Rolling Stones where they had random notes, and there was a picture of her. I can still remember the picture. She was in an aqua blue shirt, and she had her hair, and it was coming down off the side. Had that side that half-face profile that looks really good on her. And they were album out this fall, and I was just, there was so much excitement building up for it. And I honestly didn't think, at that time that we would really hear anything, let alone a full album from her. So for me, it was really, really exciting. And then
I think that for me, 1986, I was 22 and really more into the new wave scene, like Depeche Mode, and things like that. So, hearing about Rockbird, I think that I was hopeful it might be something that ultimately it turned out maybe not to be what I was hoping. But that's why we're here to discuss it track by track.
Barry, what do you remember about this album? Because you started your fanzine around then, right? Or what was going on?
Yeah, I started the fanzine in 1987, and that was when things started to come out. Like posters were coming out, and a lot of the related singles and things like that, and picture discs and so forth. And I was writing articles about them. In 1986, when it first came out, I believe that I was at a record store in Allentown, Pennsylvania, at the Lehigh Valley Mall, leafing through the Blondie records, and someone had stuck in an orange copy of Rockbird in there, and I bought it. And I think I bought it on a cassette tape too, so it was easier. I I don't remember if I had a CD player yet then, but it would have been right around then. But I don't recall too much about that. But I do remember all those appearances on MTV and so forth. And I was like taping sometimes 24 hours a day to try to catch something and scanning through all the footage to try to find something good and taping VH1 and so forth.
Well, I think we need to know that sometimes seismic things happen in pop culture. And I think of Madonna's MDNA album. That was her first album after Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga was the first person that came around. I don't want to say she was the threat to Madonna's legacy, but she was a game changer. She was huge, and everyone was comparing Lady Gaga to Madonna. So back when Rockbird came out, this is the first full album that Debbie Harry came out with after Madonna came out. So this, Madonna was so huge in 83, 84, 85. Then True Blue came out in 86. So I think a lot of people compared Madonna to Debbie Harry in a way when she started off, like the next generation. In retrospect, I don't think they're two whole different legacies there. I don't put them in the same group at all. But I think it's important to know that Rockbird, I think the stakes were high for the album because this was her first album. There was such a big difference in pop culture between 82 and 86. I mean, there were music videos and MTV was around in 82, but it really grew in those years. And do you guys remember at all thinking about the new pop world of that Rockbird landed in, that things were different?
I mean, I can remember a lot of the interviews, and it's funny, since we were going to discuss this album, I went back and I started trying to find as many interviews from that time period as I could. I was really, really shocked by how like every single interview with Debbie in regards to this album mentioned Madonna.
Yep.
And one female reporter in one even went to she actually had said she said something to the effect of, "Do you think there's room on the same street corner for Debbie Harry and Madonna?" And I was just like, that is just like so sexist and so rude. And it was just
Yeah.
like, and I was just like aghast at how misogynistic even at that time pop was. And like you said, the two of them really had, outside of blonde hair and being fierce women, that was pretty much where the similarities ended for me. So I was really kind of taken aback by how much that was being brought up. And I think a lot of people were expecting Debbie to kind of step in and say, "Oh, this is how it's done, Madonna," but that's not what Debbie does. And I think that's a lot of the reason why we got some of the choices that we do get on this album. People were kind of expecting her to fall into this new class of like female pop singer, and I think some of the choices that they made are a little head scratching. Was it 35, 37 years later, however long it's been? So, yeah, that's my opinion on that. I don't even know what the question was.
Well, when you compare Madonna's MDNA album, every interview was, of course, asked about Lady Gaga and the rivalry. So I feel like Rockbird has some parallels with MDNA in some ways. Neither of them are probably the best work of the artist in question, but both of them are the underdogs that there's things to love about both of them. So, does anybody else have any memories of going into the Rockbird era? Debbie looked great. She had the blonde hair. How old was she in 86? Does anyone know?
41.
41. So even in the 80s, I think it was hard for pop stars to be over 30. It's worse now, but then, what'd you say, 41?
Yeah, she was 41. Yeah.
41?
I think Tina Turner at the time was 44, maybe, or 45. And yeah, I think people were like, "Oh, well, we gave Tina a pass," So I don't know how much people embraced women of a certain age, which today just seems incredibly crazy. But I remember like that year, like Tina was on her second wave of her comeback, and
Break Every Rule, right?
Break Every Rule was that year, and I believe Heart was having a big comeback that year.
Right.
And I felt like Heart got all the attention as the comeback story, the female comeback story of that.
Right.
And he had
And
Cher.
we will get to that actually.
I think it's definitely harder for a female performer. You know, I think men could continue to release albums and there wasn't a question of age or their relevance. And I just feel like you can really frame the burden around that with this album. The stakes were high. Yeah, Cher was out. 86 was True Colors, wasn't it? Cyndi
True
Lauper.
Colors.
So Prince Parade was that year, I think. So I'm trying to think of the albums that came out in 86 that would have been framed. Which Hard album was it? The self-titled or Bad Animals?
I think it was
Self-titled.
the titled, wasn't it?
I think it's
Self-titled?
the self-titled one.
Okay.
I
It
think it
is,
was
yeah.
in late 85 or something. I think it was in 85.
I always get like a little ear. I have all the Hard albums. Like I do love Ann and Nancy, but they just like shit on their 80s era so much. I'm like, they were great songs and you made a lot of fucking money. Like if you're that mad, return all the money you made. They must have made some money off those albums. All right. Well, any other thoughts before we move on to let's move to the album cover next. So the Cuckoo had Debbie, that's Jimmy, is that your favorite album cover of all time? Was it you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's why I gave it a 10 for the album. The cover alone makes it a 10.
So this is this is the artwork they used. There were 4 color variants, right? Before the Target edition, and now every artist comes out with like 12 different covers to make the sales go up. But do you guys feel like, I feel like because I bought the green one, this is what I found, I feel like this is the real cover of Rockbird. Do you guys feel like an attachment to the one you have at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I have the yellow one. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
you know, and I have the yellow one because that was the one that was in front of me at the time. You know, if it was the fuchsia one or the green one, or that would have been it. It didn't matter.
Right. And I feel
No,
like
I
there
have
was
the orange one.
you have the orange one?
And then later on, probably a year or years later, I bought the other color. So I have all of them. I like the green one. I like the orange one. I'm accustomed to the orange one because I also had a poster that was about 2.5 feet square that I had hanging next to my bed for decades that was the cover of Rockbird in the orange color. And I became quite accustomed to that poster being there. There was an interview in a magazine called Only Music in March of 1987, and Debbie was interviewed, and she said that the orange is her favorite color and the magenta is her second favorite color.
Well, I'm sorry, gentlemen. The green one is always the real one to me. Welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Thank you. I liked the yellow.
You like the yellow? You're on your side. No,
How's
you're
the
not.
best?
So I'd love your take on this. We're just getting geared up to go into the track by track. But we were talking about how in 1986, this is the first post-Madonna release from Debbie. Pop culture had changed. And I know you were a fan long before this album came out. What do you remember about anticipating Debbie's comeback? This is her first album since 81, solo. Do you have any memories?
Oh, I was so excited, like I'm sure we all were. I was living in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I found and I heard that Debbie's album was available in 4 colors. So I went to the record store. I worked in the mall anyway, so I went running to the record store to buy all 4 colors, right?
Oh,
And while I was there, they said, you know, she's in town to shoot Hairspray with John Waters, right? Because they were shooting location scenes for Hairspray in Allentown at the amusement park. So there were 2 great things on one day.
wow.
I found out this movie was going to come and film, and I got to be in the movie.
Do you have your 4 different colors handy?
I do not. I don't
Okay.
even yellow one anymore because I got rid of all my vinyl.
Oh, okay. Well, we have some orange. I bought the green one. I don't remember there being variants in my record store. I might have said that already, but it wasn't until the internet came out, I think, that I realized that there were different covers. Now, when it came out on CD, it was the orange one in the early 90s, I guess, is when this reissue was. Has it been reissued again since then?
I don't think so.
Right. Like, I feel like Cuckoo's had a few reissues, but this one did not. So
Maybe twofer? Was it a twofer with those? Possibly.
was it a twofer with Deaf, Dumb, and Blonde?
I feel like it might have been.
Okay. So in 86, Madonna, of course, was very sexy. she was going into her True Blue era, which changed her image. But it's interesting that in an age when, there's a lot of sexiness, Debbie is zipped all the way up to her neck on the album cover. Like, you couldn't get any more zipped up. She's looking she's staring right at you. What do you guys think of this album cover? We have some camouflage in the back.
Love it.
It's a great album cover.
It's so good. It is so good. That photograph, the makeup, everything is flawless.
Yes.
Yeah, Debbie's friend, the designer Steven Sprouse, did all the artwork for that, and he did the album covers, and of course they used that as the artwork for the posters. There was even a 3-foot by 5-foot poster out in England. I don't have it, but I know about it. And there was clothing made with those prints, and one of my friends actually bought one of them, and he's a real Steven Sprouse collector, and I think he bought one of the leggings that Debbie wore on one of the MTV shows, maybe 15 minutes show, and she bought that, and then my other friend, he bought it from her.
It's there. They are. They're up there. I don't know why I just don't walk over there and get it. But yeah, they're her leggings.
Oh, you have the leggings?
Yeah. I'm the one that ended up with them because I ended up having her
that's funny.
Well, she was very surprised because it was on a tour, and I went to the bus, and she was signing things, and I handed her those leggings, and she goes, "Why do you have my pants?" And I was like, "Well, Debbie, it was a wild night, right?"
No.
But she was like, "No, seriously." And so I explained that she had donated them for I think it was a pet charity.
It was the one I talked about at one of the previous episodes, where it was a benefit for the Humane Society in New York at Mother, I think in 2000.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting if you put Cuckoo and Rockbird next to each other. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of Debbie. This is the last album that she came out with as Debbie, right? Because then she went to the Deborah. Oh, and the covers on the 101 albums you must hear before you die.
Which is ironic because this album is not in the book.
I was going to ask that. Is this one of the albums you're supposed to hear before you die?
Right. This is the UK edition, but that's the cover they chose. So I thought that's
funny.
I remember, Mark, it might have been from the Rolling Stones. What were they called? Like the previews or
random notes?
The random notes, yeah. I remember knowing the title Rockbird before the album came out. I don't know. I feel like maybe someone at a record store told me, but I knew that was going to be the name of the next Debbie Harry album.
Yeah, I think it was in there. I also remember there was a little People magazine blurb on it. And I remember at the time they said that like the release date was going to be October 20th. And it was like November 6th.
Oh.
It was pushed back. And I can remember going to like Sam Goody and Record World. And that's how I found out that records were released on a Tuesday. Because I would come every Tuesday until then finally like I came in and they were there.
Oh. Had you heard had you heard the single before the album came out? Or
no, the first time I heard it was the first time I put the LP on my turntable.
Same with me.
This one right here.
Oh, there it is, and this
there
is
it
mine.
Is. And there it is. But about the album cover, like Debbie's always kind of been, and she's always kind of known as like a DIY when it comes to like image and putting herself together when she's on tour and stuff. But when she gets her people together and they put a package together, she just looks stunning, right down to the Warhol, the Sprouse. I want to also say the Christian who did her hair for this is amazing. And what was her name? Linda Mason, the makeup artist on this. I love Debbie and a smoky eye and a pale lip. I think she always looks good like that. Yeah. And I like when she gets her people on it. It's just right.
Another album that came out that year is Vanity's Skin on Skin. I'm sure no one's a fan of Vanity's solo albums, but I always did love that album. All right. Well, this is now I hadn't listened to in a long, long time. And I loved it when it came out. I played it a lot. We all know it turned out not to be a huge hit, but I played this right alongside my True Colors and my True Blue, and it was definitely a part of my life. But So I met Jim from the Fleetwood Mac Phonogenics. He was in Orlando in Kissimmee. Now, has anyone ever seen the movie The Florida Project? Okay, it's a movie about people that live in the hotels in poverty, and it's about living right in the shadow of Disney. You can see Disney in this suburb, Kissimmee, that's very poor in some places, but it's the last place with like old Florida. There's a big store that's a wizard. There's a big store that's an orange. So it's all this like old-fashioned Florida camp stuff. And I put on Rockbird driving home from meeting Jim in Kissimmee, and then I went to look at some crime scenes. But I hadn't listened to this album for maybe decades. So I always remembered really loving it. And on this drive, it wasn't quite the same as I remembered it. So I feel like from even what I've gathered, before we go into the track by track, is this an album that you guys play a lot, or is it something that you hadn't heard in a long time that went back to?
I had not heard the whole album in quite some time. All the way, the whole thing through. It's been a while.
Yeah, same here.
Been a little while. It was a little while. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not an album I put on to listen to a lot, but I think of it as a tight album and a consistent album.
Right.
Like it's a pleasant play, It's like I don't feel like there are really any duds on it, but we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought it was good that the CD had lyrics in it. I don't remember if the vinyl did or not. I don't recall. But in the England, oh yeah, right. And in the foreign pressings of the CD leaflet, they added some bunch of black and white photos of Debbie. I don't remember how many, but it probably like 8 or something. But they were not in the US release.
Oh, these ones?
Yes. In the original US release, they weren't in there.
Oh, wow. Here's a nice one. And these are all from the Rockbird photo sessions?
Yeah, that was a good photo session. She looked really great in those.
I mean, I like that they're putting her front and center and she's staring us down.
I remember being really shocked that there weren't more pictures. Like they used the same picture 3 times on the cover, and we only got one picture. And I'm thinking, wow, this is her comeback, and she looks so good on the front. But they just flipped it for the back cover and then repeated it on the inside. And I'm like, was there only one good picture? And I know there was more. And they took the one with the camouflage face makeup. Mm-hmm. And I'm really surprised that wasn't the inner sleeve picture. Where her face matches her outfit.
Well, any other thoughts before we jump into the track by track discussion of Rockbird? All right. Well, Lindsey Buckingham's Go Insane had come out somewhat around the same time. I don't know if it was before or after, but it also opened with a song called I Want You, which I love that song actually. And it was recently in a TV show, surprisingly. Handmaid's Tale, maybe. I can't remember, but so Debbie also, the Rockbird opens with a song called I Want You. So I remember listening to them both at the same time. It was more dated than I remembered. Like I didn't remember. I'm going to call it the Stacy Q bass. It's got that 2 of hearts, you spin me right round bass sound, which is really dated. But in my memory, this song wasn't something that was dated until I listened to it. But it's got a great chorus. It's catchy. It's upbeat. It's hooky. What do you guys think of I Want You?
I always liked this song. I always thought it was like power pop, and I was like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. And I remember reading in her biography, she said when she approached this album, they said you have to make a commercial album. But she had said she wanted something that was kind of loose but tight. And when I hear like that crazy saxophone mixed in with that very, very, syncopated like bass and drum, synthesizer and everything. I was like, oh, that's kind of what she was talking about. And I like the songs that she's written, the few songs that she's written with Tony C, who she wrote this song with. So I've always kind of liked it. Upon re-listening to it, I was just kind of like, what is going on with these background vocalists? Because I was just, and they're good, they're very good singers that are on there. She has excellent musicians and singers on this album, but like she's singing this and they have that, and I'm like, it is so kitschy and it's so I don't. It just didn't seem appropriate for Debbie Harry. And then they have the heavy breathing, and I'm like Cyndi Lauper maybe, Stacey Q maybe, Tony Basil maybe, but not like Debbie Harry. I just didn't feel like it was appropriate, and I felt like it kind of took me out of the song, and it really dates the song. And I think
Yeah.
it's a good song. I think it's really cute. Um, and there are like moments in the song where she actually does her own harmonies where they don't have this
Oh yeah, the last verse.
that pack in my bag,
Uh,
and and where she's doing harmony with herself, and it's nice and it's
Yeah.
really good and it's very lush. And I'm like, they should have just stayed with something more like that. I think it would not sound quite so dated. So
It's almost like an Andrews sisters, like with all the voices.
yes.
It just came back to me. The "I Want You" from Lindsey Buckingham was on that show, The Bear, about chefs and kitchen in Chicago. But okay, back to Debbie. Scott, did you have something?
I liked it. I thought it was a cute opening. It's bright. She sounds very refreshed after sort of sounding tired and unhappy on the Hunter. And then, Rush Rush was a little sleepy. And so I remember thinking she sounded very awake and her
Yeah.
voice sounded very strong. But I agree that the production dates it a little bit. It's a cute song, but it is a little dated.
I think for me, it's like this is not the music I wanted in 1986. The sound of "I Want You." That's just not the music I was into at the time. So, I mean, I was immediately disappointed, when I heard it at the time, just because that
Yeah.
was not my jam at that. Listening to it now, it's light and bouncy and playful. I think serves as a good album opener. But the production does sound dated and overproduced, as I feel like much of the album is just way overproduced.
I also feel like 80s stuff can either be like cool retro or bad dated. And I feel like this fell more on the bad dated side than cool retro. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Did anyone else have any thoughts about "I Want You"? Any notes, Barry?
No, it was okay. Not my favorite. I would make a note that there were so many musicians involved in this album. If you look at the list, there, like, you could find it on Discogs or on Wikipedia. There's so many people. Maybe that's where some of the production or the background vocals and so forth were coming from.
I was definitely taken aback by the production. Like I said, I remember loving this album, and when that bass came in the chorus, the Stacey Q bass, as I'll keep calling it, the Two of Hearts bass, I just was taken. It was jarring to me. I'm like, oh, I don't remember this being like this.
There's another thing too about like it's not quite the Debbie we knew from Blondie, where she sort of shied away from straight ahead love songs, and she would sing about like everything but love. Like, she would sing about love in very indirect ways. This is kind of ingratiating for her to just lyrically, just to be like, "I want you, I love you, please love me." Like it's almost like the irony, the sassiness, the distance that we associate with her was gone, and they were trying to sort of reimagine her as more of this sort of romantic female lead,
I will say,
new a little bit.
I have a crush on a guy, and I might have driven by his job. I'm like, oh my god, I'm like the stalker, and "I Want You." I've got electronic scanners. It's mind over matter. Any other thoughts on "I Want You"? You know what? Despite the production, I'm gonna still give it 2 thumbs up. It's a little bit of a mess, but I can't help but love it. What do you guys rank this one?
I'll give it to you, though.
Oh, we're getting the
Yeah,
thumbs
I
up.
give it 1.
I go.
One
Cool.
time.
All right. Well,
I love it.
the next song is the only one that Debbie didn't have a part in writing, correct?
That's correct.
It's written by a gentleman that did sitcoms. I can't pull up his name, but he ended up being
Chuck
a
Lorre.
famous
Chuck Lorre.
Chuck Lorre. Okay. I feel like this song was designed to be the hit. Like Geffen Records, which was a problematic label in the 80s. I feel like anyone that signed to Geffen kind of had issues. Because Donna Summer did some stuff and it did not go well. Joni did some stuff over there, and I feel like it was a hard label to be on. So this is Debbie's only release on Geffen, right? One time, one shot.
Yes.
One
So I
and
feel
done.
like those in the office were like, French Kissing's going to be Debbie's huge comeback hit. It was called French Kissing in the USA in some territories. When I went back and listened to it, I never thought this back in the day, but like, oh, this has kind of got the same tempo and vibe of Take These Broken Wings. I never put those together, but like that kind of like
Uh-huh.
what do you guys think of French Kissing? Do you think it's the big comeback that was missed, or it's a weird little song? It's very campy. I feel like the whole album's campy. I actually love it because it just has a special place in my heart. It's like the Debbie Harry comeback single, even though I didn't hear it till the album came out. But what do you guys think of it? French Kissing in the USA.
Well, for me, when I listen to it now, what I was imagining was, what if Jam and Lewis had produced this song for Debbie? Because that's when Janet's Control album was released,
What was Human League?
And Human League, right? Human League's Human, which I wish this sounded a little bit more like that. And the way it is, I feel like it's a little overproduced for this. I mean, the record does not, the song does not hold up to the overproduction. It just engulfs it.
It has the quintessential 1986 sax solo.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, we're 1 year away from Tiffany and Debbie. Maybe Out of the Blue came out in '86, actually. Debbie's, but that saxophone, it reminds me of stuff off Tiffany's first album, which also had the Stacy Q bass on a lot of songs. But that one worked more so than this.
It's
Paris
a little
is
bit
calling.
yeah. But her voice is so good. Those soaring vocals. Some of the stuff, the playful stuff that she does with her voice is so gorgeous. You know?
Yeah, I agree with that. But
Yeah.
for me, the track is okay. Released earlier than the other material. They did put out a picture disc in England of that track, and Free to Fall and In Love with Love all had picture discs in the UK.
Yep.
Are they expensive, or are they pretty easy to find? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
I can't imagine that this album spawned any multi-$100 collectibles, but you never know. All right. Well, I still give French Kissing thumbs up. I'm a sucker for a cheesy, good pop song.
They used to perform that. Debbie would perform that in November of 1989. I had some notes on it.
Oh, shit. All right. Buckle Up is next. We have some, this was the introduction of the slap bass, which makes its way back on the album a few times. Yeah, it's a little dated.
And for everybody on this one, did anybody else get the impression that she was trying to make a song that she could sell to that Buckle Up campaign that was popular then?
No.
Because Buckle Up was a big campaign at the time.
Yeah, in the tri-state area. Because
it's the law, which she says at the end. And I remember thinking, I wonder if she's hoping to sell this to, and it didn't work.
Gotta pay those bills.
Gotta pay. That was just my thought.
I remember thinking as I was re-listening to this, I was like, was she like in like her car service driving up to Boston to go meet Seth Justman? And as she was going, she saw the highway signs that said "buckle up," and she's like, "I got the lyrics. I got the lyrics. Don't worry." It's
Yeah.
the law.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this one. Anybody else buckle up?
Kitchen sink production. I mean, they threw everything in. This song has everything in it, practically. It's so busy.
I'd press skip.
It's filler. Yeah, it's kind of filler.
Even in the bridge, when I'm like, where she has that "What can pass for safety measures? What can pass?" I'm like, is there a trombone playing in that?
Yeah.
And there is.
It has everything but a brilliant song in there.
Right.
Well, you know what? I'll probably give every freaking song on this album a thumbs up because I just have some sentimental value.
It's still listenable. It's just filler, you know.
Right. But it's not dreadful filler because sometimes, like, I'll admit some of her later albums, there's songs that I do skip.
Oh yes.
So there is nothing I skip on Rockbird. I can handle it all, and all of it's at least pleasant.
I agree.
Yeah, it does travel along pretty evenly throughout the whole thing. It's not like there's anything that's completely off kilter on it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the side ends with a song that, when it was remixed, ended up #1 on the dance charts. Was there? The song is "In Love with Love." Was there a freestyle remix also? Because I feel like my freestyle friends loved this song.
Yeah, Justin Strauss, I think, did it, which was, it's on the what is it? Out of the Bleach. What
Once More Into the Bleach.
Once More. Yeah, thank you. My brain froze. Yeah, that is like a freestyle mix, and that is amazing. That version is incredible. If you like freestyle music, you will love that remix.
Yeah, I feel like
I loved it. This one is one that I did love because this got a lot of club play, and that was my life at this point in time, was going to the clubs. So this one, yes, it would pack the dance floor. This one, she nailed it with this.
There were a million remixes. Like, was the London remix the most popular, would you say?
I think that was the well-known one. Yeah.
That's the one they usually use when you see it now referenced. They show the video with that mix.
Right.
I was dismayed to hear the Stacy Q bass come back though on the album version. I'm like, oh, there's that bass again. But you know, for me, this mid '80s camp kind of thing, I can handle Debbie Harry stepping into that role for one album. This was a good song. I feel like it felt very Debbie, but it also felt very of the time. I feel like this one could have been a bigger hit.
But it made me wonder, with the stock Ackerman, Waterman, whatever remix they did, what if they had produced the whole album?
Right.
And it sound, and so it made me kind of long for a retouch on some of these other tracks. Once they take one and make it a standout, this is what we can do with the material. It's like, I wish they could have done that with all of the songs, because I do feel like it elevated it.
And we should mention that the whole album was produced by Seth Justman. Was that his name?
Yeah.
And he was from the Jay Giles band, which we're already past their prime at this point, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Peter Wolf had already left the band, and I think the last hit was Centerfold, which was 81. Yeah.
So interesting choice of a producer. I feel like he was trying to stay contemporary with the production, which ended up being a disservice to the album many decades later. But I still give "In Love with Love" 2 thumbs up. Does anyone else have any commentary?
"In Love with Love" is a great song. It's one of my favorites off the album. And there was the remix that you guys were talking about, the Stock Aitken Waterman London mix edit was the short version. There was also, I believe, an extended version of that song. And I loved that song. I got it on a single from France in 87 or 88. I don't remember exactly, but I love that song. And I recorded that from the 7-inch onto a cassette tape, flipped the tape over, recorded it on the other side. And I played that song in my car, pressing the reverse button to play it over and over and over again for like 2 months or 3 months until the tape broke.
Wow.
And I had listened to nothing but that. And then I had enough. Then it was good. But I loved that. And the 12-inch single covers, there were several 12-inch singles on that song, and they had some remixes on some of them. And the covers were just absolutely amazing. In Love with Love and Free to Fall had like the best photos, in my opinion. She looked so good. It was just surreal.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a classic, great vocals from Debbie. I mean, she sounds, despite whatever you think of any of the songs, you got to admit Debbie just sounds great through the whole album.
Oh yeah, it was a great vocal form, as they say.
Right.
Yeah, she sounded beautiful on this song, and I know she's said in the past it's one of her favorite songs that she's written with Chris. I had also I heard her say that like she at the time she was like, oh, this is like a sequel or an answer to Heart of Glass. And I was
Interesting.
like, I don't know what she's talking about in regards to that. I don't see it. And the other day I was just sitting there and I'm listening like I do obsessively over what we're going to talk about. And then I'm hearing in love with love. And then I said to myself, once had a love.
Oh,
And
okay.
then love with the passionate heart, soon tear it out to be. And I was like, oh, she's kind of talking about like the counterpoint to love and love when it's warm and love when it gets tough and all these other things where she was like being very flippant in the Blondie song. And this song was being very heartfelt and kind of expressing probably some of the pain she had gone through up until that point, with her love and, with the turmoils and stuff. And I was like, God, this is a better song than I remember. And the lyric writing is really quite nice and goes along very well with her beautiful vocal. It's a really nice vocal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this one is one that just jumps out at me right away. Like when you're listening to the album, this one just catches you right away.
Yeah. All right. Well, I bet we all have thumbs up for In Love with Love.
Yeah, the video too
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
was just great. I remember jumping out of my seat, making a dive for the VCR to turn on the recording when I first saw that on VH1. I think it was. That was crazy. I think I spilled food on
Oh,
on my way to the TV, under the TV. I was in grad school then at that time. That was great. Great time.
And there was a
I
TV
can
show point that she could be on. Like it seems like we had lost some of our shows, so it's like I remember seeing her lip sync that song on Club MTV.
oh.
Mhm.
I
Wubba,
remember,
wubba, wubba, downtown Julie Brown.
yes, and I remember she did 2 songs on SNL. She did French Kissing and In Love with Love. Remember that?
Oh yeah, that was January '87.
Yeah, but I don't remember.
And Lee Fox was there. He played bass on that when they did that. And I
Wow.
think that was the first time that I remember seeing him. I think it's the earliest thing that they did together.
Right. Yeah, she wasn't. Yeah, but there wasn't much else. I remember. It's like there wasn't as much exposure as I had expected to come out of this album.
Right.
I expected more money on the videos. I expected more TV appearances, maybe a tour, and we didn't get any of it.
I just remember that the album came out and just went. It just came and went. And
Yeah.
I listened to it, but I don't know if it was, I never talked about it with my friends. It didn't become part of the conversation. And it was just something I listened to.
Right.
I can remember being at work or something, and French Kissing came on the radio, and I remember like this one girl from Long Island. She's like, "Oh, I hate this song."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Oh, here we go."
Oh my gosh.
Rosa from Deer Park doesn't like the song.
But you never forgot that she didn't like it.
Oh, I never forgot that she said that, and I'm like, "Yeah, I took it personally."
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Well, you flipped the album over. The slap bass is back. You, she has the background singers. You got me in trouble.
All the background singers.
Mark, your background singers are back in full force. What do you think of You Got Me in Trouble?
Oh my God. Well, first, it's the background singers. And there was like a time, like the original Blondie album, where like Debbie would have like, the New York accent or the Jersey accent would just come through. She always kind of had like that, tough New York girl kind of thing. And it was cool. And then you have these, trained singers, singing, "What you gonna do about it?" And I'm like, oh God, it's horrible.
Was anybody a Gem and the Holograms fan here? Don't you feel like You Got Me in Trouble would be by the Misfits? I'm gonna send it to my friend Jeff X because he's a huge Gem fan.
Or at
Yeah.
least them singing backup. Yeah.
What you gonna? Yeah, the backup singer is definitely the Misfits from Gem.
Uh, Although I will say her vocals are good. She does some like nice, vocal stretching and stuff in there. There's some fun stuff in there. Yeah.
Well, once again, the kitchen sink is here. All the horns, the background singers. Do you feel like she was trying to go for some of the camp and fun from like the first Blondie album and try to capture some of that with these songs a little bit? That's what I thought.
They're
But it was
definitely going for enthusiasm. I mean, her vocals are very enthusiastic and playful and ambitious. She's not just sort of like doing what do they call it? Phoning it in.
right. She's not on autopilot.
Yeah.
No,
I felt like there was, I mean, you could definitely hear Seth Justman, like the Jay Giles band influence on it. Like it's,
Yes, way
everything but
too
the
much.
nas of Centerfold in it. So I definitely hear that. It definitely has that party band sound to it.
It's just the songwriting is not very inspired. I mean, the vocals are there, her performance is there, but the songwriting is not what I would call super inspired
yeah,
on the album.
I feel like her voice sounds so great. Now we just need some material. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Hey guys, sorry
Hey.
I'm late.
Oh, we're glad you're
We're
here.
on the last track.
No. Uh,
Oh, Jimmy, just always getting after me, Jimmy, huh?
well, Jim, I'm going to ask you a couple things to catch you up to speed.
Oh my,
One thing I've really enjoyed is asking everybody, this was the album that came out after Debbie had been gone for a while. It's her first album in the post-Madonna world. What was your anticipation of this album when it was coming out? Were you excited?
oh yeah, definitely excited because we hadn't heard anything from her in a few years, and any little nugget you could get, you grabbed after, like Rush Rush from Scarface and things like that. But um, yeah, yeah, the anticipation was really really high. My first listen to the album, like with any other Blondie album, was kind of like, this is it. But then after I listened to it, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, it's like, oh wow, okay, yeah, this is really basically a Blondie album with Debbie's name on it. I mean, it kind of had that same vibe to it. The sound was more updated for the middle, the mid '80s and things like that. But it was a kind of a sleeper for me. And then, I mean, just today I was listening to it on my headphones here, and I was still discovering new things, new sounds, new vocal twinges that I had not heard before, you know, just listening to it again. So um, it's a shame it wasn't as commercially successful here as I think it was in Europe. I'm not 100% about that. Um, but I did have some friends who did know the song French Kissin', which I was real happy about that, because that, again, was not something that got a lot of radio play, but I knew some folks that knew about it. But I mean, I'm glad she released it. It took a moment to kind of figure it out, but then once I figured it out, I thought, yeah, this is exactly what she would have put out at this time. It's kind of up to date with the sound and typical Debbie lyrics. And now I got a question for you guys, the panel. The writer of French Kissing, that was Chuck Lorre, right? Isn't that the guy that also wrote all those famous sitcoms?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It was the last thing he wrote. I think it was the last song he wrote before he went to sitcoms. I thought I read somewhere.
Wow. Now that's pretty impressive right
Yeah,
there.
and French
So-
Kissin' was a top 10 hit in the UK, I believe.
Oh, okay, great, great. It needed to be. It's a great song. I mean, every version of it I've heard is a great, great version. So,
Well, so far our consensus is that we like the songs. The production's a little bit more dated than we all remember. I was taken a little bit off guard, but we just finished up. You got me in trouble. Is there anything you want to mention about the first run of songs before we move forward?
oh my gosh. So I guess we're still on the first side, maybe.
We just got to
Um,
side two, but yeah, what did you think of side one?
Okay. I liked it. I I'd have to look at the track list. I don't remember exactly. Is Beyond the Limit on side one?
No, it's I
No.
Want You,
Okay.
French Kissing, Buckle Up, and In Love with Love.
Okay. Loved I Want You. I think that's a great song. Buckle Up was kind of corny. French Kissing, love it. In Love with Love should have never been released as a single, but the remix of it was ahead of its time because it had that whole freestyle version that was, freestyle was just starting to hit the twinges of popular dance music here, and whoever mixed that for her was right on the pulse of that. I think I forget which version of that. There's like 3 or 4 different remixes of In Love with Love, but um, yeah, not bad. First side wasn't bad. Probably my least favorite song is In Love with Love on the first side.
Interesting, because that was everybody's favorite, so you never know who's gonna like what. But pop music did turn another corner in '87, because that's when I think Company B's album came out, Expose.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that 1987? Jody Watley's self-titled.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I thought Rockbird was released in 85, wasn't it? 86, 85, somewhere around there?
86.
86.
86, okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, Free to Fall is the next song. It's a ballad. Then we kind of have that rock, a little bit of a rock chorus. The Mark's favorite background singers are there once again. I always loved this song though. What did you guys think of this one?
I love it. Power ballad. But
Mm.
I imagine it. We were talking about heart. Imagine if this had a heart production behind it,
Oh,
like a power ballad, like What About Love,
Mm-hmm.
like to Free to Fall. It would have been amazing. I mean, it would have been incredible. I mean, it may have been cheesy or whatever. I mean, but I think that this song is it's a great song. And as it is, I mean, I love it like it is, but I just think that given that heart level production, it would have just really elevated it.
Even the video
I agree
kind of
completely with that.
looked like Heart.
I agree completely with
Mhm.
his opinion. I love that song, and I love the singles, the 12 inches, the beautiful photos on the front and the back, the um, picture disc. There's a picture disc in the UK, but
Wow.
yeah, great
And
song.
lyrically, it's a lyrically a strong song, which is nice because we haven't had a lot of songs that had lyrical importance. And I
right.
love the spoken part about you're not free to fall. I just
Yeah.
love that dramatic
Oh, yeah.
spoken word part.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find a more earnest vocal from her. It's just really, really, I feel like I've never even heard her sing like with this kind of, tone in her voice. I think she's really great. I agree with you, Jimmy. The lyrics are really, really good in this.
Mm.
And I was going through it and I'm just like, she's talking about, if she could correct the things in the past, then what would it mean to fall in love with somebody? How can you fall in love with somebody if there's no risk involved? And I'm kind of getting and I'm just thinking of where she was probably coming from in her life, and first you're sailing through love, then you're swimming, then you're sinking, and
Mhm.
just and things get real sometimes, you're riding a high and then sometimes things get real, but you still sparkle and you sizzle because the live wire always does. It's really good lyric writing, and I
Yeah.
think it's a very sweet testament to what I assume is the love that she shares with somebody. I'm assuming Chris at that time. Um, who knows? But I just think I can remember Rolling Stone at the time saying, in their review of this album, which they didn't give it a great review, saying that she starts ideas and then never finishes them. And I think the few songs on this are very well thought out and some very, very clever and very beautiful lyric writing on her part. So I disagree with Rolling Stone. And I
You know,
love that song.
there's times when Debbie and Blondie go into a really like deeper melancholy space. And I think of like Shayla and Union City. I always loved those kind of Blondie songs, but there's not a ton of them. But I feel like Free to Fall is kind of like a little bit of an 80s version of that kind of aesthetic. It has a little bit of that cheesy 80s production, but not on the verses. I mean, they're haunting. And I actually like the background singers.
Yeah.
I was gonna backtrack on the background vocals and say I actually think they do their job very well on this song.
I mean, who has anyone driven in their car and they just wail along singing to the song? I know I have. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
what a freaking chorus this is. All right, anybody else? Free to Fall?
Love it.
I think it's the first time I ever believe. Well, I think it's the first time she ever sang anything that unguarded. So devoid of irony and distance, ironic distance.
Mm.
For her to just really sing about love in that direct way, and you really buy it. It doesn't sound schmaltzy. There's always the danger of sounding schmaltzy and insipid when you try that. And she doesn't go anywhere near it. It's like you really are buying what she's selling, the authenticity.
I feel like a lot of Debbie's work, there's that you're at an arm's length, and there's kind of like that cool, I don't want to say chilly distance, but just I feel like this album brings us a little closer to her. Even not the best songs. I feel like she drops the guard
Yes.
through the whole album.
I would agree with that.
It's refreshing in a way.
I remember there was an interview at the time where somebody confronted her about that regarding this material, and they said, they said something like, "You're normally so icy. You're like, what's happening to the ice princess?" And Debbie said, "Well, she's melting. Isn't it about time?"
Love it.
Yeah, it's kind of cute.
I remember that that interview. I think it's Entertainment Tonight.
Right.
Do you think an Icy Debbie would have been more successful in '86? Do you think maybe that's part of the reason the album didn't do well?
I think it's all production. I think that if a different producer had their hands on this album, I think that the outcome would have been entirely potentially different.
Yeah, an icier producer would have been a better.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Giorgio Moroder, let him
God.
produce it, or I don't know. I just feel like the entire album suffers from the production. Debbie's the one that saves it, in the songs. Like, she saves Free to Fall from that. But
From falling. You think of like Stock Aitken Waterman, who really were just their first huge hit was Dead or Alive, right? You Spin Me Round. But then they continued to evolve. They did Donna Summer's '89, Another Time and Place album. They did the early Kylie Minogue albums. So even though their music's dated, that's what I consider like a good dated. Like, so
Bananarama.
Yeah. Oh, Bananarama. They did. Wow.
Venus, Trick of the Night. Yeah, I heard a rumor.
Yeah. But they did Trick of the Night, the remix, right? Because the original one was really dark.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. I love Bananarama. Someday
they did one of the In Love with Love remixes. Is that why you're bringing this up? Because that was okay. Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, I had said I wish they had just done the whole album. They had produced it.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on Free to Fall? The only the lyric where she's like, what'd she say? Like, I know you're not free. I don't know. She does that really fast thing, which is kind of a little weird, but cool. All right. There's some weird Blondie songs out there. Eat to the Beat. I feel like Rockbird's kind of a modern Eat to the Beat a little bit. It's merged with the Monster Mash.
Yeah. Like Screaming Skin, that kind of song.
Yep. What a weird song. Do you feel like Rockbird's a good title of the album? It's a weird album title. Why? I wonder why. Like, I wonder what made her feel like that was the title for this collection.
How much did she have? Did she have much control
maybe after
when she was with Geffen?
Cuckoo, Rockbird.
I feel like nobody had control over at Geffen. Like,
yeah. I mean, I wonder how much that played into it. I wonder how much of the sound that came out of the album was more of a Geffen influence than it was a Debbie influence. You see what I'm getting at? She, like, when they did Cuckoo, I mean, I know they worked with Bernard Edwards and Nile Rodgers, but like half the album is Chris and Debbie, and the other half is, Bernard and Edwards with Chris and Debbie. So they kind of had, some good artistic control with that. But
Right.
she probably didn't have a whole lot of control with Rockbird.
I feel like
I
whenever
wouldn't be
Kevin tried,
surprised if that was true, because she had done an interview and said that French Kissin' was her first choice for the single, and
Okay.
but the record company was making the decisions. She just happened to agree with it. She
Okay.
thought that it should have been released in the summer, though. But yes, I think the
Mm.
record company had a lot of control and influence at that time.
it seems like Geffen never made the right choices either. Like every time they tried to step in and get a hit, they just did not have a good team over there, it seems.
Mm.
Yeah, she mentions in her book that when I guess her manager at the time, who was getting her out of tax debt and stuff, decided to represent her. Had new people at Geffen and had a connection or something there, and that's where that connection came from. But she had said in her book that Geffen approached her and said there'll be no experimental cuckoo type album. They want to make something very, very marketable, something very, very pop oriented. So it seems like she walked into it and she kind of understood what was expected of her, and I guess those were the reasons the choices were made, and it seemed like, her hands were probably tied to a certain extent.
I feel like despite that though, Rockbird isn't commercial at all. The song, it's just like a weird little like.
Yeah, that's definitely a B-side, if that. Which
It
it
makes
was.
a good name
But-
for my girlfriend's 25-year-old cockatoo who loves
Oh,
to
there
listen
you
to
go.
music and bop the head around.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, a weird title. I didn't love it. I remember an English guy who was a big fan of Blondie telling me at the time, "Oh, only we know what it means. You Americans don't know what it means.
Oh,
What does it mean?" And he's like, "Well, bird means girl, so it's like she's the rock girl." And I think speculating, like I don't think he had heard this, that's what it meant to her. And the only time I've ever heard her try to explain it, she just talks about, well, there's rock, meaning rock music, but a rock could also be a rock, which is heavy. So how can a rock fly? So that was my thinking is, and it's so Debbie, like explanation like that. Like, oh, okay. How can a rock fly? Got it.
jeez.
But she could be also pulling your leg. Like there's that thing with Debbie where sometimes you feel like she's sort of having fun at your expense, and it might mean something totally different to her.
So Barry, do you say Rockbird to the bird and then it goes pretty boy?
That would be funny, but he doesn't talk too much.
Oh damn! All right. Any other thoughts on the song Rockbird?
Nope.
No, I thought it was a throwaway album track. I mean, I wish they had done it more in a B-52s kind of vibe. If they're
Right.
going to be that playful, if it's going to be like this playful song, they had just gone with that B-52s kind of vibe where it starts, but it just slides into the same overproduced, album track.
Yeah.
Was bouncing off satellites this year from the B-52s? Was that 86?
Mm-hmm.
And then they came back, of course, huge with Cosmic Thing. But I feel like the song Rockbird is not nearly as fun as they want it to be or they think they're being.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'd still give it a damn thumbs up. All right, moving on. Secret Life. 2 sides to every story. Heads and tails on the very same coin. I always like this song. I feel like this is a Debbie and Chris co-write, correct?
I believe so.
Yes,
So-
and entwined like vines.
Yes.
Still the same two parallel lines.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought
I
it was
like.
about them is what I thought, and it's worn on me better as the years have gone on.
Mhm.
And even as going back and re-listening to it, I like this song. It's not bad. One thing that bothers me, and there are background vocals on it, but the drum machine. And I just miss Clem. I just miss hearing
Oh
Clem
yeah.
like pound drums behind her. He could just propel her
Mm.
voice like nobody else. And I think it's really obvious on this album with all the drum program and all the 80s sound to it. I'm just like, God, I miss Clem Burke.
Yeah.
But it would have been a much better song with him playing drums on it, but it's not a bad song.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said.
No, I agree with Mark. I like this song. It did take some time to grow on me. I actually didn't like the name of the damn song. To
Oh,
me,
Secret Life?
Secret Life, yeah, it just kind of sounded cheesy, like a romance novel or something like that, you know. And but you listen to it and a few times, the musicality of it and the two sides to every story, and then it goes into the kind of the calm, smooth, verse, and then boom, two sides to every, it. That I like that part of it. I mean, it's actually a pretty decent song, I think.
I'd
I
say
don't know.
that
For me, it always sounds fresh because it's like one of those. I forgot it the moment it stopped playing,
right.
so it always sounds fresh.
You're right.
Because you
Yeah.
can't analyze
But,
it.
right, because it's like, oh, I forgot about this song.
Yep.
Yeah.
I completely have erased it from my memory.
I feel like this album does have some good hooks, though. That's for sure.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. The melody of the verses and the voice that she's sort of singing in that half whispery voice.
Hmm.
I love it. I just think it's so. It's the only song that she sings that way that I can think of, and I like. It's one of my favorites highlights of the album for me.
And I do like the bridge, which was already mentioned, but very pretty. All right.
We come together. That.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Now, when this song was playing, just so you all know, I was driving around a maximum, I believe, security prison in the middle of the country in Florida,
Oh, nice.
exploring some, because I like going to crime scenes and exploring weird places. So there's some spots I wanted to visit. So it's very eerie to listen to Secret Life with a big wall of barbed wire at 12:30 a.m. in the middle of Polk County, Florida.
12:30 a.m. So you were living your secret life.
I was living my secret. You know what?
Hmm.
If a hot prisoner escaped climbing over that barbed wire, you're damn right I would be. But I also might not have lived to see this podcast, so maybe it's good that didn't happen.
You're a
But you'd be going, we come together.
Oh shit. Well, we have one song left. Debbie reunites with Nile Rodgers. We already heard
Yes.
them on the Cuckoo album. I felt like it was interesting that he was just on this. Was this a leftover from the Cuckoo sessions? Or did she go back and? I'm sure it wasn't. This sounds like a whole different era. Beyond the limit. The horns are here.
She's still obsessed with like a tenement apartment falling apart. Because isn't that in Inner City Spillover? It's got like the
Mhm.
brick on his head
Yep.
crumbling, and now we have like the top floor lands in bed.
Yeah.
And your
She's
toast is green.
tenement.
Yeah. I had not made that connection. That's interesting. Now I'm going to have to go back and listen to those two songs again and start comparing them.
The prequel and the sequel.
It's interesting they chose to end the album with something upbeat. So it's kind of like taking you back to where it started. They're not leaving you on a thoughtful note. This definitely seems like a more slick offering from Debbie and Niall together. I don't know.
I
don't have
just
a
wish she
lot.
had produced it.
Yeah.
I liked it. I think it's a great. I think it's a great song to end the album with. I mean, especially considering you had the Field, In Love with Love, and Rockbird, and and then you've got this kind of funky Beyond the Limit with the horns, and her voice is really. I think her voice is really strong in this song. So I like it. I'm glad the album ends that way.
The slap
I'm
bass.
glad
I
the
believe-
album ends.
Mm.
Oh!
Yeah.
Shit.
I love the bass. I love the bass breakdown, and it almost feels kind of like a concert. And now and here's my band, but that extended music part to it, and it's a fun song. I wish the lyrics were.
I do wonder what Debbie anticipated with this album. Like, was she disappointed with it? Did she think it was going to be a huge hit? Did she not care? I'm sure she did care only because Geffen was such a money-focused label that,
Yeah.
if anything, she cared because she didn't want to deal with the stress of them coming after her for not having a huge hit.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
there-
She only did one album with them, so
Yeah.
Is there only 9 songs on this record?
Mhm.
That's good. So this is her shortest album ever, right?
Yeah.
And we know that usually we have like non-album songs that didn't make the album, but in this case, we don't know of any, right?
No.
mm-mm.
Interesting.
Come on, Barry. Where's your Rockbird director's cut?
No, I don't know of any. I have no director's producer's cut for this one.
Barry, do you have any other notes or anything that you wanted to talk about the album?
No, actually, we covered everything that I had made notes about.
Well, it seems like this wasn't maybe the deepest moment of the discography. Nothing that I hated though. There's nothing I hate on this album. I don't even know if there's anything I'd replace because what are you gonna replace it with? Jimmy, did you do a different lineup for the album? Nope. It is.
It is basically. I think that they did as best as they could with sequencing, and I don't think they did a bad job with what they had to work with.
Mhm.
So I didn't see any point in even messing with it.
If that song "Mind Over Matter" had made it to the movie that it was recorded for, the soundtrack,
Summer School. Mhm.
and on Rockbird, or no? Was it the same time as Rockbird? You know the song I mean?
Yeah, I wondered about that and Feel the Spin from Fresh Groove.
Yeah, that was the year before.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look and see what year that was, but it would have fit in nicely on this album, and it might have been a hit. It's such a good song, I think. But I didn't research it prior to this. I should have.
I think
I'm sorry.
singer by the name of. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I had heard there was a podcast on Stock Aitken Waterman, and they were talking about when she went to like do the re-vocals for "In Love with Love," and she actually did the "Mind Over Matter" vocals at the same time in the same session.
Oh, wow.
They went into the
Okay.
whole thing, and apparently it was a label thing. I guess the soundtrack was going to be on a different label, and Geffen had a problem with that. So,
Okay.
or the label that was issuing the soundtrack did. But E.G. Daly ended up doing the lyric on it, and she was on a different label. So I don't know if I don't know. It was some kind of political thing, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
So Debbie re-recorded her vocals for the remix of "In Love with Love."
She added some vocals, and yeah, they put some things into it. There's actually, he tells a story of it because when she walked into the studio, I guess they used a specific microphone that was state of the art at the time. And when she came in, she's like, "Oh, I don't use that microphone. That microphone doesn't sound good." And they're like, "No, Debbie, it's brand new. It's state of the art. You're gonna love this microphone. You're gonna love this microphone." And he said, I had to talk her into like for 2 hours, talk her into using this microphone. I guess she's savvy and she knows what makes her sound good. She gets into the studio. She goes to sit. The microphone broke.
Oh shit!
Just, like stared them down, and she's like, "Yeah," and they ended up using her microphone.
Wow.
So, but I can't remember where. Yeah, it was. There's that podcast that was strictly on the music of Stock Aitken Waterman and all the remixes.
I'll have to look for that.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting.
I can't remember the name of it. It was good.
What's the song from Deaf, Dumb, and Blonde that was one of the singles? Maybe
Maybe for sure.
Maybe for sure.
Bright Side.
What was the original song that Maybe for Sure came from?
I think that was from
Rock and Roll.
Yes.
Okay. And I know we'll cover that next podcast. Well, does anyone have any other thoughts about Rockbird before we do our ratings?
Nope.
Jimmy, I never start with you because you usually have a revamp, but since you don't have one this time, let's shake things up. What do you give Rockbird on a scale of 1 to 10?
If I were being generous, I'd probably give it a 7.
Okay.
Generously. Because I do think that I think that what saves it are Free to Fall, In Love with Love, and French Kiss in USA. I think those really save this from being a complete mess. But those songs are standouts.
And before we go to our next rating, do you all agree though that this album just came out then you never heard about it? Like I never heard about it again.
Yeah.
I mean, it just disappeared. But we're still listening to it. Mark, what do you give Rockbird?
I I would love to give it a higher score because when I put it on, it evokes certain memories of that time in my life when I was, 18, 19 years old, and that was fun. But upon re-listening to it, I'm gonna I'm gonna say like a 6.75.
Holy shit.
Because, like a
Ooh.
6.5 is failing, so it's just above it. I love it. It's Debbie, but it didn't age
Ouch.
well in my eyes. It didn't age well in my eyes.
Well,
Oof.
buckle up.
Whereas Cuckoo, I scored way higher than I thought I was going to. This one I'm
Mhm.
scoring way lower than I wanted to, and sorry.
Ah,
Well, Barry, what do you think of Rockbird?
Somewhere in the middle. There's some really standout tracks. Debbie sounds fantastic, and there's some that I skip. So somewhere in the middle. It's not my favorite album.
Okay. Scott, what's your analysis?
um, I don't love the songwriting very much, but I enjoy her voice so much on this record that's gonna pull the score up for me. So I would give it a 7 or a 7.5, especially as a Debbie Harry solo album. If it were a Blondie album, I might give it a lower score. But for a Debbie solo album, I'm going to say 7 or a 7.5.
Okay. How about you, Jim?
I was going to give it an 8, but now I feel like, but you know what? I have the same feelings for it that Mark does, but I think I'm probably about maybe 3 or 4 years younger than Mark. So like I was still kind of coming into my own when this album came out. And so there are a lot of really, really good memories with this album for me. And, um, I can still put, French Kissing on, Free to Fall, the remix of In Love with Love, and just still be as happy listening to it today as I was, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whenever this came back out. Or came out. So I'm gonna give it an 8. I'm gonna.
Well, when I'm going towards my CD collection or now Spotify, and I want to listen to some Debbie or some Blondie, I'll be honest, I probably would go for Rockbird before I'd go for like the Hunter, or even maybe No Exit, maybe even Curse of Blondie. Like Rockbird's an album I can put on from beginning to end.
Mhm.
Maybe every song's not brilliant, but I like every song. Plus, it was the first album that came out in my lifetime as an active music buyer at 12 years old. So I'm also gonna give it 8 stars or 8 points or whatever the rating is.
Yay!
It's a Debbie Harry album. And there's some coming up that I would have to save a little bit lower rating for. So
Oh
I don't want to go too low quite yet.
no!
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so gentlemen, our next Debbie podcast is in February, I believe. So 'tis the season of Thanksgiving, right? Because this was supposed to be the December one. We just did it early because the holidays. And then January will be Fleetwood Mac. So yes, Deaf, Dumb, and Blonde in February. It'll be a new year. I'm thankful for you all. Thanks to the Patreon. Thanks to the subscribers. Anyone else want to sign off with any thoughts about Rockbird before we are free to fall? All right. Well, buckle up, y'all, because I'm going to be
Just go
posting.
beyond the limit.
Yeah, just go beyond the limit. Well, I'd love to say I was doing some French kissing in the USA tonight, but I'm going to, and I also wish I had a secret life, but I don't. So I guess I'm just going to buckle up to my computer and get this up on YouTube tonight. So love you all. I will see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.